Everybody's Videobob, and I'm sitting here in my kitchen with my new Apple Mac Pro. Actually, it's not new, it's used, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. This isn't one of my normal videos about cars or the latest, greatest toaster or vacuum. I'm doing these videos on YouTube, and I'm getting a little bit more serious about it, and I want to start doing them in 4K. And I found out that my old 2011 MacBook Pro 17 just can't seem to handle doing 4K at 60 frames a second. It kicks its ass. The generator video I did in 4K recently, that was 30 minutes, it took me 24 hours to render that thing out. Okay, that's crazy. So I've been looking at all the new Mac stuff that's coming out. Of course, that new iMac Pro is really badass. But that thing starts at $5,000, fully optioned is 15 grand. Crazy, man. And I think that that's something that's gonna obsolete itself pretty fast, being in an enclosure like that. You can't even open it to work on it. The new Mac Mini, not really that impressed with the performance of it. And I don't like the fact that you have to custom configure it with the memory soldered onto the board. Again, something you can't upgrade. Now, a lot of my Mac buddies told me, why don't you build a Hackintosh? You can put together a PC-based system for a couple $1,000 and run Mac software on it, and it works just as good. It might crash once in a while. It's not compatible with a lot of things, and you're gonna have all sorts of other issues, but I go, no, I don't want any of that. My other buddy tried to convince me to get one of the old style, big aluminum Mac Pros and hot rod it out. I go, that thing is 10 years old. It's got like 9 fans in it. It sounds like a hairdryer running at full volume. They go, well, yeah, it is a little incompatible with this, a little incompatible. I said, listen, I don't want to deal with that. The Mac Pro 2013 model, even though that's already a few years old, is still what they're currently selling at Apple, which some people think is crazy. You can walk in there right now and spend $3,000-4,000 on one of these, stripped down. By the time you get it fully optioned, you might spend 10 grand on the thing. But this is currently what they're selling and what they're supporting. Even though they're going to be coming out with a new Mac Pro double-size unit soon, that thing's going to be out of my price range, man. That thing's probably going to be 10-15 grand all day long. So I found what I think is the best solution with the Mac Pro. So this isn't going to be so much of a how-to video on how to do this, because there's tons of videos out there. And this thing is so simple, you don't even really need a how-to video on how to change the RAM and the hard drive and things like that. CPU is a little bit more involved than the other parts, but it's still not that hard. All you need is a couple of screwdrivers. So let me tell you what I did. This is basically just me telling you what I think is the best solution. Now, this is for someone who's willing to spend as much as $5,000 on a new Mac. If you were thinking about buying like a new iMac Pro and buying the base model at $5,000, let me talk you into this idea. Now, this is taken for granted that you also have monitors already. The great thing about that new iMac Pro is it comes with a really kick-ass 27-inch monitor, but I happen to already have 2 27-inch Thunderbolt monitors with my current system now. So that'll work perfectly with this. So I've already got $2,000 invested in those monitors. There's nothing wrong with them. No reason to replace them. Mouse, keyboard, those are trivial things. So all of that is ready to go. All I have to do is drop this into place in my other computer and bang, it's as simple as that. So let me tell you what I did. I found this on eBay. There's a company, now these guys didn't help me out any, but I'm gonna throw them a bone. I got the box line over there. They're called iPowerResale.com. They're on eBay. They sell like hundreds of these things, right? And they have them in every kind of configuration. This is what you wanna try to do. Try to find one that is in the lowest configuration, be it CPU, hard drive, memory, but with one exception. You wanna get the best GPU you can. Now, if I remember correctly, oh, I love that. Awesome. If I remember correctly, they only came with 3 different GPUs, which is the graphics processing unit, okay? This one is the D700, which as far as I know is the highest card they ever put into one of these Mac Pros. The 2 lower cards were the D500, the D300. So I don't have all the specifications memorized, but all I can tell you is that the D700 was the biggest, baddest one that they put into this unit. I think it was a $1,400 upgrade or something like that. I'd have to check Apple to double check those numbers. But the point is, if you were to order this unit in the configuration I have it now, matter of fact, you couldn't even order it in that configuration. The biggest processor you can get for this is a 12-core processor. Now, you can buy that processor aftermarket for like $400 or $500, right? But if you get it from Apple, you're gonna spend thousands, right? So instead of buying the Apple's $4,000 computer and then adding thousands of dollars worth of RAM and memory and all this and processor and all these other upgrades and spending $10,000 on it, you can do what I did and kind of hack one together using all real stuff. All right, so the maximum recommended RAM for these is 64 gigabytes. You can fit in 128 gigabytes, but it runs at a lower bus speed. So even though you're going to have more RAM, it's going to actually slow down your processing. But depending on what you're doing, that may be helpful for you. It may be good for rendering. But I decided I'm just going to go with the 64 megs of RAM, the highest bus speed, and it's what's recommended, and it's good old-fashioned Apple RAM, you know, or that they would have put in. And it's really easy to change. I mean, you've seen a million videos on how they do it. You just pop this little thing open, pop your RAM out, and it just snaps in just like that. What I want to talk about that was going to blow your mind is this hard drive. Okay, this is made by OWC, and it's called the Aura SSD from Mac Pro. Now, what they've basically done is they've printed their own little circuit board with a heat sink, and they've rated together two 2 terabyte SSDs. The drive that comes with this thing is like a pathetic, this is a memory stick. It's not even a hard drive. It comes with a 256 gig SSD. I was just at Costco. They sell a 256 gig SSD for 40 bucks, right? That's basically all this is. Maybe it's faster, whatever. But the point is that that's ridiculous. For running as your C drive, your main drive, whatever you want to call it, that's just not enough for your software and all your stuff. And look, I know that it's got like a gajillion ports on it, and you can get external drives for this thing really cheap. Again, I was at Costco. They had a 5 terabyte portable drive for $100. That's crazy. I saw online, I was thinking about buying, there was a 24 terabyte RAID for $1,000. 24 terabytes. So this is the biggest thing that you can put into this unit as of right now. OWC sells this. Now, it's kind of expensive. It's over $2,000, but I found this one on eBay for $1,600. Now, that's a lot of money, but I have 4 terabytes of SSD on a Mac Pro. You will not find, I have searched the internet, I have searched for videos. Nowhere have I seen somebody with one of these with 12 core processor, maxed RAM, and 4 terabytes. I always see people put in like a 2 terabyte. So what do I got in this thing? Less than $4,000. So for less than $4,000, I have what is the current selling Mac Pro that you would get from Apple with more stuff in it than you could even order from Apple. 12 core processor, 64 gigs of RAM, and a 4 terabyte SSD drive. And the DC700 GPUs. This thing is gonna be a screamer, and I can't wait to get it hooked up. And I may decide to try out the 128 gigs of RAM. The difference was, it was just so much more expensive. I mean, you can get the 64 gigs of RAM for like under $200, and 128 for like $600. It was so much more expensive for that extra amount. And I don't know if I'm gonna really need it, considering I'm going from a 4-core laptop to a 12-core Mac Pro. I think I'm gonna see the difference I need, and I think it's gonna do what I need it to do. The great thing is this is all approved stuff. You know, I've seen people talk about taking the GPUs out and hooking up an external system and all this kind of hack stuff. And some of that stuff works, but listen, I've been in the computer world, you know, for a long time. I used to be a technician for Gateway computers back in the 90s. That's how far back I go. And I used to work at a computer store building computers. And I've just been around them my whole life, and I've just learned that when it comes to proprietary stuff like Apple, they test and test and test their stuff to make sure that it's going to work. And I really just want the stuff to work. I just want to be able to do reliable production and videos. And let me tell you, that MacBook Pro 17, I bought that thing in 2011. It's in a hinge dock, sitting upright like this, hooked up to 2 monitors. And I've been using it as a desktop, not as a laptop, but as a desktop. And it's been on 24/7 for like 5 years straight. It's been a great unit. Now, I have replaced the mechanical hard drives with SSD, and so basically there's no moving parts but the fans. And once a year I take it apart and clean it. Take the lid off of it, blow out the fans, clean it. But other than that, hell of a system. And I think one of the great things about those laptops is, that's different than this, is the power supply, the plug, is separate from it. And I think that helps. And also that I have it sitting upright helps keep it cool. And that's really the key thing here. So this thing, you know, is supposed to be a thermal design. You should go watch the Apple video of how they make just this lid. They take like a aluminum puck, compress it down and draw it into this shape. Then they go through back over and they machine it, they polish it, they chrome it, they anodize it, and it's just the amount of work that goes into just this lid. It's a work of art. This for, you know, I'm a guy who works with metal and machining, and it is a work of art. I mean, it is. I marvel at it. And I know it's affectionately called the trash can because, well, quite frankly, it looks like a little wastebasket. But I think that I'm going to be really happy with this. I don't know if I'll do a follow-up video on this or not. The whole point of this video was that I had watched so many YouTube videos out there about how to hot rod one of these trash cans, and nobody ever talked about this 4 terabyte drive, didn't even know it existed. And when I discovered that you could get such a thing, nobody's shown how to install. And you know, here's the thing, I would give you, if you go on OWC's page, they explain how to install it, but it really is nothing at all. There's the one screw there that just like the regular hard drive would have. The only additional thing you do is there's 2 ground wires that go to these screws, but it just pops in there. Now you notice the lid is a little tighter because these little thermal contacts make contact with the actual lid and use this entire thing as a heat sink to help cool off the thing. So they've taken two terabyte SSDs, rated them together onto one chip that plugs in together, heat sink them together, grounded them to the core. So just to sum up, this is a 12-core system, 64 gigs of RAM, D700 GPUs with a 4 terabyte SSD. I know I'm all impressed by that, considering that I paid $1,600, which really the retail on this is I think $2,200, and I can get a 5 terabyte drive for 99 bucks at Costco. Of course, you know, it's not apples to oranges, apples, but you know, I know that this thing's going to be a screamer. I have an 8 terabyte RAID that I'm going to hook up to this. That's just storage. But when you're doing video, when you're doing multi-layer video, you want to have as much on the actual working drive as you can. That's just going to give you the most amount of speed. But then when rendering out, that's when it's a good idea to render out to an output device, because that's going at a slow pace. You don't need a high throughput for that. You only need the high throughput for when you're moving around. If you're trying to do multi-layer 4K 60 frame a second video and you're having graphics and all this kind of stuff, that's going to take a lot of power. This thing's going to heat up, and I may even I don't know if it's better to leave the cover off, but I may just put a little fan on it when I'm really working hard on it. You'd be surprised what little wind can do. So I hope I didn't bore you to death with this video. I know I have a lot of subscribers that just watch everything I do, watch every video that I put out. I'm sitting here in my kitchen. I have, you know, my old 1974 Magnavox record console behind me and my 1955 Rockola jukebox that I restored. I really love music and things like that. I appreciate the mechanics of how things work. And I gotta admit, I'm an Apple sheep. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I have Apple stuff. And there really is what they call like the ecosystem, the cohesiveness of it all. And once you become a full-blown Apple sheep, and you have Apple TVs on all your TVs, and you have Apple computers, and an Apple Watch, an Apple iPhone, an Apple iPad, and an Apple iMac Pro, and or you got an iMac at the head. I got all these Apple products, and what's so great about them is they're all so integrated. I can start a project here at my house, go to my shop and pick it up on that computer, or jump on my laptop. I can be watching a video on my Apple TV here, go to my shop and pick it up, or go to my bedroom, wherever, or go to the movie theater. I have Apple TVs everywhere, and it's great because they mirror each other everywhere they go, and I don't know of another product that does that. I gotta be honest. So I'm really impressed with just the build quality of stuff. There's just not a PC manufactured anything out there that is on the level of this thing. So thanks for watching the video. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. And you know, if my videos are important to you, of course, you know, hit the notification. I hate watching the YouTube videos and watch the guys grovel for subscriptions, but hey, the subscribe button's over here, and this is my next video. And thanks for watching. I'm Videobob.